Have you ever wondered how Afghanistan, often considered a graveyard for superpowers, became such a pivotal point in global geopolitics? Our story begins in the distant past when Afghanistan was a crossroads of the ancient world. Nestled between the towering peaks of the Hindu Kush and the vast deserts of the Middle East, Afghanistan was a crucial junction for the Silk Road, the legendary trade route that connected the East and West. This geographical significance made it a melting pot of different cultures and civilizations, from the Persians and Greeks in the ancient times to the Arabs, Mongols, and Turks in the Middle Ages. But Afghanistan's story isn't just one of trade and cultural exchange. It's also a tale of conflict and resilience. From the very beginning, the rugged terrain and harsh climate of Afghanistan made it a challenging land to conquer. Its fiercely independent people, hardened by the harsh conditions, were equally difficult to subdue. Enter the superpowers. The first of these was the British Empire in the 19th century. Lured by the strategic value of Afghanistan as a buffer state against Russian expansion, the British embarked on a series of invasions that resulted in the First Anglo-Afghan War. But the British soon found out what the Persians, Greeks, Arabs, Mongols, and Turks had learned before them. Afghanistan was not a land that could be easily controlled. In the face of fierce resistance, the British, like many other would-be conquerors, were forced to retreat, leaving behind a legacy of conflict and distrust that would shape Afghanistan's interactions with foreign powers for centuries to come. And so, the stage was set for Afghanistan's emergence as a battleground for superpowers. Its strategic location, rich history, and indomitable spirit made it a land that many desired, but few could truly conquer. With its rich history and strategic location, Afghanistan began to attract the attention of the world's greatest powers. As we delve deeper into the history of Afghanistan, we'll see how this seemingly remote and inhospitable land became the focus of global geopolitics, earning it the moniker of graveyard for superpowers. The 19th century saw the commencement of what history calls the Great Game. But what was this game, and how did Afghanistan become its chessboard? The Great Game, a term coined by British intelligence officer Arthur Connolly, was a fierce contest between two superpowers of the time, Britain and Russia. The prize was dominance over Central Asia, a region of vast geopolitical importance. And right at the heart of this tussle sat the rugged, mountainous land of Afghanistan, a strategic jewel coveted by both sides. At the dawn of the 19th century, Britain, with its vast empire, feared Russian expansion southwards towards the prized jewel of their crown, India. On the other hand, Russia, a rising power, sought to extend its influence over the Central Asian Khanates. The two powers, not wanting a direct conflict, turned Central Asia into a chessboard, and Afghanistan, a pawn, was caught in the middle. Throughout the century, Afghanistan was the stage for political maneuvering, espionage, and military interventions, as Britain and Russia vied for influence. This game of shadows was a cloak-and-dagger affair, full of intrigue and subterfuge, and the people of Afghanistan were the ones who bore the brunt. The Great Game saw 3 Anglo-Afghan wars, each one leaving the country more unstable and devastated than before. The British, under the guise of establishing a friendly buffer state, imposed treaties that eroded Afghan sovereignty. Meanwhile, Russia continued its relentless push southwards, destabilizing the region further. However, the Great Game wasn't just a destructive force. It also brought about significant changes in Afghanistan's political landscape. The need to maintain balance and neutrality amidst the superpowers' rivalry led to the rise of strong central leadership in Afghanistan, a departure from its traditionally decentralized tribal governance. As the 19th century drew to a close, the Great Game gradually faded. The Anglo-Russian Agreement of 1907, which recognized Afghanistan as a neutral zone, signaled the end of this long-standing rivalry. But the damage was done. Afghanistan was left politically fragmented, economically exhausted, and socially devastated. The Great Game ended, leaving a destabilized Afghanistan and paving the way for the next superpower's involvement. As the world was divided into 2 blocks, Afghanistan found itself in the crosshairs of the Cold War. In the late 20th century, the political climate was tense. The world was split into 2 factions: the Western democracies led by the United States and the Eastern communist states headed by the Soviet Union. Afghanistan, unfortunately, became a battleground for these global powers. In December 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to bolster the struggling communist regime. The Soviets, however, were met with fierce opposition from the Afghan resistance, known as the Mujahideen. These brave warriors fighting for their homeland proved to be a formidable force. Meanwhile, the United States, keen to curb the spread of communism, saw an opportunity. They began covertly supporting the Mujahideen through funding, weapons, and training. This support was funneled through Pakistan, a key player in this geopolitical chess game. As the years passed, the conflict took a heavy toll. The Soviet Union, despite its military might, found itself in a quagmire. The rugged mountains and harsh climates of Afghanistan, coupled with the relentless resistance, made victory a distant dream. After a decade-long struggle in 1989, the Soviet Union finally decided to withdraw its forces. The withdrawal, however, was far from a peaceful transition. It left a power vacuum that led to further instability and civil war. The effects of this invasion and the subsequent withdrawal were far-reaching. The once thriving cities were left in ruins, and the countryside was littered with landmines. The Afghan society was left fractured, and the country plunged into years of chaos and conflict. Moreover, the war created an environment ripe for extremist ideologies to flourish. Groups that were once allies in the fight against the Soviets turned against each other, vying for control over the war-torn country. This period marked the rise of groups like the Taliban, setting the stage for the turmoil that would follow in the decades to come. The Soviet Union retreated, marking another superpower's defeat in the rugged terrains of Afghanistan. The Cold War era was a defining period in Afghanistan's history, shaping its present and casting a long shadow over its future. With the dawn of the 21st century, another superpower set its foot in Afghanistan. The United States, in the wake of the tragic events of September 11, 2001, launched their military invasion. Afghanistan became the first front in the newly declared War on Terror. The goal was seemingly straightforward: dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. But as history has repeatedly shown us, nothing in Afghanistan is ever that simple. The US and its allies quickly toppled the Taliban regime, but the victory was short-lived. The Taliban regrouped, and a fierce insurgency took root. The conflict dragged on, year after year, turning into America's longest war. And despite the staggering investment of more than $2 trillion and the loss of over 2,000 American lives, a clear and decisive victory remained elusive. While the US was embroiled in this conflict, Afghanistan continued to grapple with a host of issues. The country remained mired in poverty, corruption was rampant, and the Afghan government struggled to maintain control. Despite attempts at nation-building, progress was slow and often undermined by the ongoing violence. By the second decade of the 21st century, the US began to seek a way out. Talks with the Taliban started, and in February 2020, a peace agreement was signed. The deal set the stage for the withdrawal of US forces, but it left many questions unanswered. In August 2021, the world watched in shock as the Taliban swiftly reclaimed power, just days after the US completed its withdrawal. The rapid collapse of the Afghan government was a stark reminder of the fragility of the gains made over the past 2 decades. And so, the cycle continues. The superpower has retreated, but the challenges remain. Afghanistan is once again at a crossroads, its future uncertain. As the US withdrew, it marked yet another chapter in Afghanistan's history as the graveyard of empires. So, what does this journey through history tell us about Afghanistan's impact on superpowers? This question marks the beginning of our reflection on the intriguing narrative we've just navigated. Casting our minds back, we can see a landscape marked by the footprints of many a superpower. Each one, lured by the strategic allure of Afghanistan, faced unforeseen challenges that tested their might and mettle. This is no coincidence, but a pattern that reveals the resilience of the Afghan people and the inherent complexities of the region. Afghanistan, often referred to as the graveyard of empires, has witnessed the rise and fall of many superpowers, from the British Empire to the Soviet Union, and most recently, the United States. Each power arrived with grand ambitions, only to be met with a fierce resistance that defied their expectations and shattered their strategies. The resilience of the Afghan people is a testament to their enduring spirit and unyielding determination. Their tenacity, fueled by a love for their homeland, has proven to be an insurmountable obstacle for superpowers, challenging their military prowess and political strategies. Moreover, the strategic importance of Afghanistan, nestled between Central and South Asia, has often been underestimated. This geographical gem, coveted for its location, has been the stage for the Great Game, the Cold War, and the post-Cold War era. Yet, in each period, superpowers struggled to maintain control, underscoring the complexities of this region. These historical episodes teach us valuable lessons. They remind us that power is not simply about military strength or political influence. It is also about understanding the cultural dynamics, respecting the will of the people, and adapting to the unique challenges of the region. In the grand narrative of history, Afghanistan has proven itself to be more than just a piece of the geopolitical puzzle. It is a nation of proud people, a land of rugged beauty, and a crucible that has shaped the fate of superpowers. In the grand chessboard of geopolitics, Afghanistan has proven time and again that it is a player, not a pawn, shaping the fate of superpowers.